Sir, thank you so much for speaking to NDTV. Justin Trudeau's testimony of sorts has come amidst heightened diplomatic tension between India and Canada. There have been accusations which have been escalating since 2023. How do you see the fact that finally the Prime Minister of Canada has admitted that Canada doesn't really have enough evidence to allege that Indian government's links to the Khalistani terrorists killing?
If I remember correctly, what he said was that at the time he spoke in the House of Commons, all he had was intelligence. I don't think anybody has said that they don't have evidence today. I think that that's the distinction. Perhaps more importantly, the fact is that there are 4 individuals charged with the Nijjar murder. I don't think that we need to be in denial. I mean, we do understand that countries sometimes do dumb things to each other. And, there's no question in my mind or the minds of other Canadians that there is some truth to what Mr. Trudeau has said. The fact is that much of that is based on the same kind of evidence and information that was available in Pannu's case. I mean, this intelligence was given by the Americans. So I think the question more importantly is, where do we go from here? How do we repair a relationship that was once good after having been weak at one time during the nuclear explosions sometime a couple of decades ago?
Okay, Mr. Dosanjh, given the tensions that we are seeing and how thorny the relationship are between the two countries, how do you think it will move from here onwards? Who do you think can play that role of repairing the relationship? India is asking some tough questions, and India has actually said that Justin Trudeau's claims are preposterous in nature.
Yeah, no, it's I mean the blame has been flowing bilaterally, so there's no question. I think that Canada needs to recognize that the Khalistani business had essentially died down after the 80s and 90s, and it has only become more prominent in Canada during Mr. Trudeau's time because he's surrounded by the Khalistanis, has been so from the moment he gained the leadership of the Liberal Party, and he's never disowned them. He's never criticized their violent and extremist activities, their hate speech and their violent speech. So in a sense, Mr. Trudeau has been complicit in the rise of Khalistani business in Canada. On the other hand, we also know that Mr. Modi's muscular policy, and the thing about saying we're going to go into your home to kill you, those kinds of utterances don't really lend themselves to a good diplomacy. And therefore, I think the perception of Mr. Modi in Canada is that he is somebody perhaps you will find difficult to do business with. And similarly, Indians, because of his own history, have no trust in Trudeau. So to repair the relationship, I think we got to dial this down. And I think Mr. Trudeau did not need to go into the House of Commons when he did initially. Now he didn't have to call a press conference. The RCMP had already done that for obviously legitimate reasons. They may have some evidence, obviously. But Mr. Trudeau did not have to inject himself into this and send it back into the stratosphere. He did. So in a sense, he is to blame for that. But we need to dial it down. We need to dial it down from India and from Canada. And the leadership needs to figure out how diplomats can come together and deal with it. And if there is blame to go around in terms of murders and extortion and things of that nature, if India has encouraged or has done that, some might say out of frustration because India has been sending all kinds of information to Canada to act on, to send some people back, extradite them. Canada hasn't done that. I mean, that's been happening from Mr. Trudeau Sr.'s time when Indira Gandhi had asked for extradition of some people. And Canada has never done that. So in a sense, I think Canada may have some blame, but that's not a reason for transnational murder or transnational crime. And therefore, I think we need to sit down and figure it out. Both sides need to do that. But if nothing changes in the leadership in terms of their attitudes toward each other and how they deal with this situation in some sort of perhaps with low decibels, um, then I think we may have to look beyond the current leadership in India and current leadership in Canada for our relationship to become normal again.
Ujjwal Dosanjh, one view is also that US is backing Canada, and this in a way has emboldened Justin Trudeau.
I don't think the U.S. Has done anything that they wouldn't have done. I mean, U.S. is part of the Five Eyes. They share information. We share information with other Four Eyes. That's quite normal. That's been going on for decades. So it's nothing out of the ordinary that U.S. has done, except U.S. also has a case that they are now prosecuting. But I think the U.S. dealt with the case somewhat differently. I mean, the president did not stand up in the Oval Office and made a statement. The Secretary of State Blinken didn't say anything. It was some lowly State of Department official who talked about it when the indictment was released. And therefore, I think America, despite the fact that it's a superpower, has dealt with the situation somewhat more diplomatically. I know there is a theory that America has been putting Canada up to it. I don't think so. I mean, they help each other. Five Eyes help each other. That's the norm here in this country. But I think Mr. Trudeau sent it to the stratosphere by his intervention in Parliament and now by his news conference. I think he's done that on his own because he's had some. There is a theory that he's had some, uh, uh, um, some of his own political issues to deal with. Therefore, these two things, news conference and the initial intervention in Parliament, they've come in handy for him. He didn't need to do that.
You make an interesting observation, sir, and that brings me to my next question, that Trudeau may have wanted to create a distraction from his domestic issues. But what really explains the situation now onwards, in the sense that there was this perhaps a great degree of hurry on part of Prime Minister Trudeau? Would you agree with that? And what next in terms of when you say dial down? Can there be a potential dialing down at this stage?
Well, I think dialing down, by that I simply mean that the Prime Minister or the foreign affairs ministers need to kind of stop making commentary on these issues and let the diplomatic channels work on them. That's what I mean by dialing down. It has to be dealt with. I mean, there is a man who's been killed. There are 4 Indian citizens who are being charged with the crime, and there may be more. And I mean, that's a real issue. The murderers, the killers may have nothing to do with India. They may have had something to do with India in the sense that, of being encouraged to do what they did. And that may all be divulged during the trial. In this country, you don't divulge evidence before you go to trial because it may taint the evidence and make it inadmissible in court.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us.